It's important to understand that from the beginning of the war, black people have a commitment to their own freedom and determination to seize what they see as a critical opening, which will change their lives and change the lives of their descendants forever.
The influx of new soldiers was having an impact, but Lincoln wanted to choke the Southern resistance. Despite opposition within the Republican Party, Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation on January 1st, 1863. It sent shockwaves through the South. Although the proclamation only freed slaves in the rebel states that were beyond the control of the Union Army, to African Americans, it meant freedom was on the horizon.
Those enslaved people who heard about the proclamation, was that oftentimes they placed the broadest possible interpretation on it. And even if the literal words did not apply to them because of geographical limitations, they applied the proclamation to themselves.
A proclamation was issued by the President.
All over the South, African Americans took up the cause of freedom.
The following, to wit, that on the first day of January, A.D. 1863, all persons held as slaves within any state.
Even soldiers who had already freed themselves by making it to the Union lines gathered to hear the words read aloud.
Shall be then, thenceforward, and forever free. And the executive government.
The call for freedom had been sounded.
By issuing the Emancipation Proclamation, Abraham Lincoln was able to change the war from simply a war to keep the Union together, a war to crush a rebellion, into a holy war, a fight for freedom.
For African Americans, it was the dawn of a new day. But the war was far from over. In the North, anger over the proclamation caused enlistments by white men to fall off. The federal government responded with an unpopular draft. As the 1864 election neared, Lincoln feared defeat because of the proclamation. But Union victories in Virginia and the capture of Atlanta transformed the national mood. The president won with 55% of the vote. Then on April 9, 1865, with his army down to less than 8,000 men, Confederate General Robert E. Lee surrendered. The war was almost over. Five days after the surrender, exactly 4 years to the day the Civil War had begun, a celebration was held at Fort Sumter to raise the American flag once again over the fort.
And there was tremendous rejoicing on that day as throngs of people journeyed out to Fort Sumter.
By the time that celebration in Charleston Harbor occurred, Robert Smalls fought in 17 battles in which he risked his life for the Union cause. So he was a military hero at the end of the war. And when this occurred, he was one of the celebrities who was included on the ceremony.
This celebration was terribly consequential because what it did was confirm that the war was over with and that this was a new day in South Carolina and a new day throughout the length and breadth of the South.
All over the country, African Americans rejoiced. But their joy would not last. That same night, Abraham Lincoln was shot in a Washington theater. Within hours, the great emancipator was dead.
Smalls said he cried like a baby and prayed, Lord, have mercy on us all.
The country wondered, what now? Lincoln hadn't finalized his plans to reintegrate the Union, but with the South in shambles, the region needed reconstruction. Every level of society had to be rebuilt. Now free, African Americans were faced with many challenges, but their greatest challenge was freedom itself.
African Americans, although greatly desirous of freedom, were not really sure what exactly would be entailed by that concept.
In a world built on slavery, to say you were not enslaved anymore, what does it mean? Who's free? Does that mean you're going to become a white person? Does that mean you're going to be able to own property?
It's an abstract kind of a concept that really could only be determined by what people did.
If you read accounts of life in the South in the immediate aftermath of the war, what you will read over and over again is about large numbers of African Americans who are traveling the roads. It's very interesting because the former slaveholders say that these people are just wandering around aimlessly. They weren't wandering around aimlessly. They were looking for friends and relatives that had been sold away.
One of the most heart-rending sights in and after the war publications is columns called Lost Friends, in which people are looking for their families. People trying to get together.
They were, by their actions, giving the lie to this notion that family didn't mean anything, that these connections had been broken, that they didn't care anything about these people who had been sold away. And that's precisely what they did care about, and what they were trying to do is to reconstitute families, to find mothers and fathers and relatives and friends.
All over the South, African Americans set out to become part of the new society. With the help of the Federal Freedmen's Bureau, churches in the North and South, and individuals, worked together to open schools for the newly freed slaves. Freed people of all ages wanted one of the most basic rights denied them during slavery: to learn to read and write. Many others opened businesses or sought work for pay. For former slaves, it was the first time they could negotiate work contracts and buy land. They knew that owning land was the key to inclusion in the new America. Still others turned their attention to becoming part of the new political system. But the new president was a Southern Democrat named Andrew Johnson.
In the first weeks after he takes office, he sets about providing almost wholesale pardons for many of those who have been the major leaders of the Confederacy.
The former Confederates had only one major requirement before being readmitted to the Union. They had to accept the 13th Amendment, abolishing slavery, and all would be forgiven. Republicans in Congress were outraged. They impeached President Johnson, who escaped removal by a single vote. Then Congress took over Reconstruction and immediately made changes to the Constitution.